I think we can say that that enthusiasm factor is something that the DFL needs to tap into.
That's a good point.
The Uptake and AM 950 radio man, Mike McIntee, joins me to discuss the direction of the state and the nation, and later,
I'd say it's duck and cover all the way.
critic-at-large Bruce Baird shares his amused take on Donald Trump's rise from carnival barker to Washington's first ever ringmaster. And we provide a moment of tropical respite at the Como Conservatory.
This is Democratic Visions. Here's Tim.
This January marks the 9th anniversary of the Uptake. The nonprofit online news service is headed by Mike McIntee. The former network TV news executive can also be heard weekdays at 4 p.m. on AM 950 radio, the voice of Minnesota. AM 950 is Minnesota's only progressive broadcast operation. Mike, happy anniversary and welcome back to Democratic Visions.
Oh, thanks for having me, Tim.
Okay, I want to get right to the quick. Electoral college vote. You covered it online on your program, The Uptake.
In Minnesota, yes, we did.
So tell me what's gone on to date nationally and Minnesota-wise.
In Minnesota, all 10 votes went for Hillary Clinton, as they have to by state law. There was one elector who decided that he was going to go rogue, and his name was Mohammed Abdurrahman. He's from the 5th Congressional District, and he went up to Steve Simon, presented his ballot, and they rejected it. Later we found out it was for Bernie Sanders.
Well, I guess that's somebody that has a statement to make. I'm not sure I think that that's the best way of making the statement, but to each his own.
What happens, though, is that his vote gets rejected, but he actually gets rejected, and they had to put another elector in his place.
How do they get that other person there? Do they have some people sitting there that are alternates?
They have a bench. They had a bench of alternates. They actually had 9 alternates for the 10 votes today. Somebody called in sick.
Really?
And actually, if they went through and they used all 9 alternates, the state law says they can start picking people who just showed up, who at least swear that they will vote for somebody.
You know, I was an elector in 2004, and I think the mistake that was made in 2004 where someone voted for John Edwards as opposed to John Kerry probably was the predicate for the adoption of this statute, because back then you didn't have to sign your ballot, and your vote was counted as it was read. But probably this is an improvement on the system.
Well, it is, but I think the guy who decided to vote for Sanders today did it as a protest, but also it may be to test that system, test that vote to see that law, to see if it could stand up in court.
Well, there is some constitutional scholars that would claim that a statute of that sort impinges upon the right of the electors as defined by the United States Constitution to vote their conscience.
Yeah, and you think about it, if it was 10 electors going to vote for Donald Trump today, somebody might have wanted one of those electors to maybe vote for Hillary Clinton.
Well, it's in the books, as they say.
That's right.
I'm really pleased to see that the Uptake covers those kinds of events. As a matter of fact, I understand that the Uptake has the most media coverage of the goings-on at the Capitol of any other news media outlet in Minnesota. Is that right?
We have more live video coverage of what happens at the legislature and the events around it than any other media in the state, including public television.
Do you have money falling out of your pocket? How do you afford that? How do you afford that, Mike?
Through pennies, nickels, and dimes. They're a little bit bigger than that. People give us. I mean, we do it all on donations. It costs us about $1,000 a week to cover the Capitol, and we've got 20 weeks of the legislative session coming up.
So you're trying to raise some money to cover that?
Yeah, we are. We're asking people to go to our website and find the donate button and donate for our legislative coverage.
Well, it's really valuable to watch. If not everybody's going to watch it, but it's a great source of background information, and it's important information, I think, for a person that wants to stay abreast of what's happening over in St. Paul.
Well, it's important to see it happen live, but it's also important to have that record there to be able to go back to and take a look at and say, did that person really say that? And that's what we do with the legislature, that's what we do with debates, that's what we do with political conventions. All those important events that have to be on the record, we're there to make sure we're the record.
Well, this allows me to segue into the next topic, which is what's going to be going on at the state capitol. The Uptake also had coverage of the tete-a-tete between Kurt Daudt and Governor Dayton, dealing with whether or not the state was going to address those rising health insurance premiums for thousands of Minnesotans, and it was a standoff at best.
It was some pretty interesting political theater is what it was.
Well, it was. Is that just the beginning of what we're going to see on a repetitive basis as the session goes forward?
Well, Kurt Dowd held a news conference along with the other legislative leaders today, and he said that the first bill out of the chute in the regular session is going to be the bill to fix MNsure to deal with that problem. However, the whole idea of the political theater going on, that happens towards the end of the session when we're trying to make those larger deals.
I understand.
Yeah. And Governor Dayton said that he wanted that in public, and today Kurt Dowd was asked about that. He said, yes, we're going to do that in public. So,
well, you're in business. You'll be there covering
we'll
it.
be there, although...
I don't think it's going to be in public, Mike, sorry.
Well, Senator Tom Bach, who's been around there for quite some time and is now the minority leader, said, I remember when we did this last time, and it didn't turn out too well. This is in the Pawlenty administration. And he said there's a lot of talk about which cameras were going to be where and which angles were which. So there's a lot of style and not a lot of substance in those public discussions.
Well, it appeared that the governor wanted what might be termed a clean bill to address the rising premiums, and Speaker Dowd wanted to tie in the bonding and the tax bill. And then apparently there was another element put in there that Governor Dayton raised objection to, which I think had to do with the state authorizing individuals to purchase insurance from out-state companies. Was I correct in reading that?
And I did not have time to really dig down into the details on this one because, frankly, it all became moot because they weren't going to do it. But the governor was willing to talk about the bonding bill and about the tax bill up until the time that Kurt Dowd wasn't in town. He was down in the Virgin Islands, apparently.
You got to go someplace during the winter.
I know, he had a nice tan when he showed up to talk to the governor. But in all fairness, Tom Bach was there as well. It was a legislative conference. But apparently Tom Bach was returning his phone calls, and Kurt Dowd was not returning the phone calls or the messages to the governor, and he missed the deadline, and he said, okay, we're not going to talk about the bonding bill. We're not going to talk about the tax bill. We're only going to do the MNsure fix, and even that they couldn't agree on.
Well, of course, the back and forth that's going to take place in St. Paul after the first of the year is a product of the 2016 election. Since you do the Uptake, you may or may not recognize me as being somebody that occasionally is chairing the state DFL convention. And it seems to me that the party as a whole pretty well got their hat handed to them in this last election. I think I heard that in Minnesota, Hillary Clinton won 9 of 87 counties. Now that sounds like a landslide to me if you're picking legislators all over the state. Do you think the DFL has got to hone a better message to attract voters from outside the metropolitan area?
Well, there's a lot of factors in that. I think, and you're aware of this too. There was, I think it was a total of 44,000 votes that Hillary Clinton won by. But that is a very narrow margin in a state that's normally gone very Democratic for the president. And they lost a lot of seats, again, and didn't pick them up as they hoped to in the Senate. So, there's a lot of things going on here. I think that this was a result of the top of the ticket having a big impact because a lot of people were depressed and didn't want to go out and vote. And I think it's because the Republicans have been hammering home such a negative message for 30 years about Hillary Clinton.
No kidding.
And I think that had a big impact. I don't know all the reasons. I think that's something that the Democratic Party wants to figure out over the next couple of months. They need to do kind of a post-operative on this to figure out why exactly people didn't. One thing I do know is that Hillary Clinton ran a lot of negative ads. And negative ads tend to drive away people.
Negative ads against the Trump candidacy.
Right. And negative ads don't give you a reason to vote for somebody. They give you a reason to vote against somebody. And I think what was lacking was enthusiasm, and I think the DFL base needs enthusiasm to turn out. And that's not what happened here. And that affected everything down the ticket.
There's been speculation that Sanders would have done better in Minnesota.
Well, he won in Minnesota on the...
But I'm talking about on a November general ballot. But I'm not sure that if the Republican Party had trained its cannons on Bernie Sanders, he would have been able to overcome the negative campaign that would have been set up against him.
You have somebody who admits he's a socialist, and that is next to communism in the eyes of a lot of Republican voters, and that would have been, a negative. However, I think countering that is that Sanders had a lot of positive going for him in Minnesota and as a message in general. And while we'll never know whether he would have won a national race against Donald Trump, unless he runs again, of course, in 4 years. I think we can say that that enthusiasm factor is something that the DFL needs to tap into.
That's a good point. No, I
and
agree with that.
and the Democratic Party needs to tap into nationally. I think that's what Keith Ellison is looking at while he's running for DNC chair.
Yeah. It occurs to me that the enthusiasm that Sanders would have brought to the base might well have countered the very negative attacks that would have been run on Sanders as a socialist and so forth. And the fact of the matter is, if the Republicans could swallow Donald Trump, so it's really important in my estimation for us to be pulling people on the base together and getting people to turn out. Although I don't know whether or not Sanders would have been able to do as well as Clinton did with the broad base of the party. I mean, he would appeal to certain individuals, certain activists, certain people of background, but I'm not sure that he would span the ethnicity of the party, notwithstanding the fact that he had Ellison as his principal spokesperson during the campaign. What do you think?
Well, I think he would have done better on the youth vote, definitely. 'Cause
Yes.
we saw that. In terms of would he attract the black vote? I mean, that's pretty much what we're talking about
Or
here.
Latino.
Or Latino, or other minorities. And I would say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say that he's, the Clintons, both of them had a long history and support of the black community and the Latino community, and that definitely came into play. But would it have played out differently with Sanders? I don't know. I really don't know.
So in early February, the DNC is going to get together and they're going to elect a new chair. It seems like it's coming down to Representative Ellison and Labor Secretary Tom Perez. What do you think?
Well, President Obama the other day kind of gave Perez the nod without saying so. He came out and said, oh yeah, he's a wonderful guy, but I'm not taking sides
Right,
here.
exactly.
I'm not taking sides here. And some people have argued that, well, anything that President Obama says, people are going to go against because they're trying to run away from that legacy. They're trying to, that's where we have failed. I disagree with that. I think actually what President Obama ran two very good campaigns, and he spent a lot of time telling people, if you would have run a campaign like I ran a campaign, you would have won. I mean, if you listen to what he had to say, he was really dissing Hillary Clinton's campaign managers.
Pretty easy to do, I would say,
Yeah.
on an after-the-fact basis.
After-the-fact basis, but I mean, that's essentially what he's saying. He says, if you get out there and press the flesh and go where people are and talk to people, instead of running, I think the alternative here was running a lot of negative campaign ads, I think you will do better.
Well, and the alternative, of course, was the Clinton campaign was here, there, and every other place. And where were they in Michigan? Where were they in Wisconsin? They weren't there where they had to be. Now, that doesn't mean that if she had spent time in those states, the outcome would have been different, because I'm sure she spent a god-awful amount of time in Florida, and that didn't work out either. But again, it's easy to criticize on an after-the-fact basis, but there'll be plenty of that, and the next book that comes out, I'll be buying it to find out what the insiders say going forward.
Now, we have a similar situation here in Minnesota where we have got a tussle over the state chair.
I know that.
Donna Cassett has announced and said that she's running against Ken Martin for many of the reasons that we just talked about, that there wasn't an energized turnout, and she said that there's been too much centralization of the party and not enough stuff going on out in rural Minnesota. And so she's going to make an attempt to take over the party from Ken Martin.
Ken Martin at the State Central Committee meeting, and I'm paraphrasing, said something to the effect, when things go bad, the chair is always blamed, and when things go well, the chair's mentioned sort of in passing. And I suspect there's some truth to that.
It absolutely is. Donna Cassett has said, when I had her on my show, let's take a look at doing several different things. Let's listen to the voter. Let's get out there and rely less on polling and do more, canvassing and talking to people. Although a campaign needs to be data-driven, I just don't know if we had the best data going into this, because it seemed like everybody's polling was off in this last election. When you get down to it, they're both talking about a lot about the same things, I think. It's just the execution and the idea that you need to change something because something didn't work. And I think what Minnesotans, what the DFL party needs to decide is, didn't work because of what the DFL did, or it didn't work because of who was at the top of the ticket here in Minnesota and across the country?
All right, you've told us that there's nothing we can do. President Trump is President Trump going forward. What do you think the most dire consequence is going to be? Maybe you got an armful of them, start rattling them off.
I mean, start rattling them off. The environment and what we're going to be facing there, and what could happen there. The Food and Drug Administration, they're basically being told, hey guys, just approve those drugs. We don't have to worry about what they do. Let's just get them done. It seems like every cabinet appointment that we hear from the Trump administration is about dismantling or ignoring the laws that we have passed as opposed to enforcing them. And I think that's a big concern. I mean, the fact that we're going to have a Secretary of State who is very buddy-buddy with the Russians and has conflicts of interest himself on oil deals that he might be making that the Russians could have some influence on. That's really concerning. We have never had this many conflicts of interest in an administration that I can remember in my lifetime. I mean, our last president here, President Obama, took all of his stuff and put it into T-bills. This president, we don't know what he's going to do, and it's very concerning.
I tell you, Mike, which sends shivers up my spine is the fact that President Trump has already released the names of the 20-plus individuals who he will utilize for his appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I say appointment, but it certainly could be appointments. And we're not talking about a 4-year term. We're not talking about an 8-year term. We're talking about people who are going to be sitting there for 30-plus years if we're that unlucky. So this administration is going to reshape, or at least it's going to solidify, the conservative nature of the Supreme Court that we've been forced to endure now for about 2 decades. It's just, it's a travesty, and I don't know how the rule of law is going to prevail going forward. It seems to me that this Supreme Court, they've gutted the Voting Rights Act. There are probably cases on the agenda or that will percolate through the system that'll do even worse than that to basic rights of the people of this country.
I think people are sending vitamins and all sorts of good things to Ruth Bader Ginsburg right now, saying, please hang in there for at least 4 years.
And slow down, will you? Please don't take so much hard action. Well, and then of course in 2018, we have a new governor being elected in Minnesota. I don't know who's going to be on the Democratic side, but I really don't know who it's going to be on the Republican side. Representative Doudt, Tom Emmer, Congressman Emmer. Anybody else that jumps out at you as a front runner in that position?
I think you've mentioned the 2 top names on the Republican side that might be running. I think it will be a little bit of a free-for-all. We've already seen a couple names, a couple of people announced on the Democratic side. What we haven't heard from is Tim Walz. His name keeps getting thrown around. Amy Klobuchar's name keeps getting tossed around. We've had the St. Paul mayor already step into the race. We've had Aaron Murphy, Representative Aaron Murphy, who's been a minority leader, step into the race. I think you're going to see more people than I have fingers on my hands running on the DFL side before we're done.
So I want to focus in on one of the individuals you just mentioned, Senator Klobuchar. Tell me, what do you think goes through her mind as she would try and determine whether she should give up a very safe seat in the Senate to run for governor of Minnesota?
Well, first off, that safe seat is going to be in the minority for some time, and it's no fun being in the minority. Democrats are facing in the next cycle defending more Senate seats than they are trying to be aggressive on them. So it's very likely that the Democrats in the Senate are going to be in the minority. And Amy Klobuchar, just like Mark Dayton, looks at being an executive as something that's a little bit easier to do than being a senator. Because with a senator, you got to work with 99 other people. When you're the executive of the state, you get to set the course for it. And Amy Klobuchar is not, Mark Dayton was later on in his years when he got elected. Amy Klobuchar could be governor of Minnesota for a decade or more and really shape what's going on here. And the possibility of having that kind of legacy, I think, appeals to her.
The New Yorker, maybe you saw the article, that listed the 13 individuals, all women, because this was the focus of the article, who were best positioned to become president. And 2 of them are Republicans, and of the 11 Democrats, she had Amy ranked number 1. So what does that do to becoming governor. Do you think that's a step, a positive step towards running for president if Amy so chose?
That is an entirely different issue, and it's really a question of, I think, how strong the other Democrats look like in the next election for president, because it's a long campaign. She's been going down to Iowa a lot, you know. She might have to change her address, I think, if she decided to look at that.
We have a residency requirement for Senate, don't we?
Yes, we do. But I think Amy Klobuchar running for president is a possibility, but it's really going to depend upon how the rest of the world kind of falls together and whether she thinks that she has a chance. She definitely is probably thinking about it more now that Hillary Clinton has failed in this particular election, because it leaves it open as to be a challenger. That said, there may be some pushback against, well, we tried a woman at the top of the ticket.
I suppose.
Gee, that's maybe not a good idea. I don't subscribe to that theory, but I can see where some people might talk that way.
Let's switch topics one more time, Mike. How Love Won, your documentary you produced on the marriage equality battle of a couple of years ago. Has it shown here in Minnesota yet?
It has shown in Minnesota. It won the Audience Choice Award in April at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival. It may have another showing come January. We're waiting to find out about that. It's shown in a few places, the St. Cloud Film Festival, but it is going to show for the first time outside of the state here in February in Oxford, Mississippi. So we're very excited about that.
Well, that should be a stepping stone to even wider exposure, shouldn't it?
Well, that's what we hope. I mean, that's one of the reasons you do festivals, is you're trying to find somebody who's willing to take the risk to distribute a movie for you. It's very hard to get that distribution, so we may end up doing self-distribution. That means putting it online and selling it by DVD, but we'll know soon.
Yeah, because right now I've tried to locate it online, but I can't find it.
You can't find it, yes, and that's because festivals don't like you to have it available online if they're going to show it in a festival.
Mike, you're a real interesting guy, and I want to thank you for showing up for Democratic Visions.
Well, thank you, Tim.
We'll return after a few moments about winter and what to do about it, courtesy of producer Jeff Strait.
Not long ago, Minnesotans were enjoying an unusually mild autumn. That's me in the backyard in early November with our potted flowers and banana and papyrus plants. I used to live in Uganda, in East Africa. I liked it. I liked it a lot. After the general election, things changed. Pre-election, post-election. After Thanksgiving, they changed again. And then again. Now, many Minnesotans, if they can avoid sliding off icy roads and fender benders, make the very best of winter. But sometimes we do need a break from it all, a kind of respite from the cold and the cabin fever. And now possums for your consideration, the Como Zoo and Conservatory in St. Paul. Outdoors around here, things can warm up in February or March. You know the routine. The Minnesota Twins begin reporting for spring training on February 13. Their season opener is here against Kansas City on April 3rd. Go figure, and good luck.
And now, the starting lineup and batting order for your Minnesota.
So many people are asking me, what would I do on my first day in office? Well, you have executive orders all over.
Last March, truck driver Bruce Baird and Jeff Strait reacted to the bizarre TV spots of GOP presidential hopefuls. Now that the Electoral College has cast its votes, Bruce, a kind of amused critic-at-large, is back.
Well, Bruce, the Electoral College has voted. Is this a duck and cover situation, or will the Supreme Court, the Congress, and the Fourth Estate, you know the Fourth Estate, the electronic news media, will they be out watching our back over the next 4 years?
Yeah, I guess it's a rhetorical question. I think we know the answer, that we're all doomed. I'd say it's duck and cover all the way. We can't, there's no way in hell Congress is going to step in. And the Fourth Estate, as far as I'm concerned, helped the victor in this last election. We just have to go out with a cheerful attitude. And there's nothing much we can do about it, and just try to enjoy the ride.
I hear a lot of people that want to fight.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I think they plan on fighting from their home couches. And some young people who are on Twitter or Facebook maybe are going to cause a lot of problems. But I think that'll just be brushed aside.
Brushed aside?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Oh, man. Make America great again, huh?
Yeah, let's make America great again.
Well, last March, when we were on this show, we looked at some of the GOP presidential television spots. Let's see how things have changed.
Again?
And I will say the politics of it would be very, very different if a bunch of lawyers or bankers
We'll
were
work on
crossing
all
the
of
rail
these
line.
executive orders, and the bad ones, of which mostly that's what you have, will be terminated immediately my first day.
Today, more men and women are out of work than ever before in our nation's history.
If you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
Trump just ended his victory thank you tour, and Hillary got almost 3 million more votes than he did. Does Trump have that mandate?
It doesn't seem like it.
Now, what's this stuff about fake news and all that during the campaign? It hasn't stopped.
It will never stop. I think we've realized that facts are a thing of the past. And, facts, where have they ever got us? I heard that Thomas Paine said using reason with someone who doesn't believe in reason is like administering medicine to the dead. And so people enjoy the fake news. People pretty much know the answer before they learn the facts anyway. So whatever they hear that reinforces what they already believe, they can accept as news. You can call it fake, I guess, is what people think.
How does the Star Tribune take all this?
I think I haven't noticed, does the Star Tribune have a point of view on much?
I think they do.
That's it for now. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.